Nulls are invisible non-rendering layers that can be used in conjunction with parenting to control layers in your composition. And in this video, I'll show you some situations where they can be useful. Now we're in nulls.aep. If you want to follow along, you can open that. And we're in 01 Louis nulls comp. Now down in the timeline, I have several layers here. And what I want to do is find a way of controlling them without having to open up all of their position properties and move the position properties. It means that if I want to keyframe the position, I have to remember to open them all up and set keyframes. So instead, we're going to create one control layer. So I'm going to say layer, new, null object. And as I do, a new layer appears down in the timeline, and we get this little frame indicating our layer in the composition panel. As I said, it's a non-rendering layer, but this frame is there so that you can see it and select it in the comp panel. So what I want to do now is make that the parent for all of these layers. So I select these layers and just drag the pick whip to the null. It comes up with a little bit of help there, telling me keyboard shortcuts or modifiers that I can hold to adjust the actions of the parenting. But for now, we don't need to hold any modifiers. All we want to do is select null 2, and that null now becomes the controller for all the other layers. So I can adjust my position value, and you'll notice that my character follows the position value wherever it goes, which is really handy because I can create him walking across the scene. Now, talking about walking across the scene, let's rename this. Let's hit return and do left to right control. Okay, so that's moving his left to right position. And we're going to add another controller. But this time we're going to add the controller to this composition here, O2 camera orbit comp. Now, I'm just going to change my workspace because we're working in a widescreen aspect. So let's just go back to our standard workspace. And you can now see that I've placed my character inside a comp. So we're going to add a camera to this composition. So I'm going to go to Layer, New, Camera, and add a camera to my scene. And what I want to do is start working in 3D and maybe get the camera flying around my character and just making it obvious that he's two-dimensional within a 3D scene. So in order for the camera to see the layer, we need to make the layer 3D. So I'm just going to click on the 3D button. And what I can do now, there's an old technique that a lot of After Effects users used of parenting a camera to a null and then using the null to control the camera's rotation. And this has been automated now in this version of After Effects. In fact, in 5.5 it was automated. So we can now select the camera and go to Layer, Camera, Create Orbit Null. And that's going to create a null for us and automatically link the camera to it. And what happens now, if we have a look in our View menu, we can go down here to a custom view so we can see our character, we can see the camera. And if I just zoom out a little bit, so I'm going to use my camera tool to do that, what I can do now is select the null, hit R on the keyboard for rotation. If I adjust the Y rotation value of the null, you'll notice that the camera follows. You can see the camera now moving around the character. It's now at the back. So I can actually animate that. So let's do that. So let's set a keyframe for Y rotation at the beginning. And let's go to about 3 seconds. We'll trim our work area to there by hitting N, and then we'll put in 1 revolution. And if we now preview that, select the camera, you'll notice the camera is moving around the character as the character is doing the little walking move. So if I come out of custom view and go into active camera view, we get this effect of the camera moving around the character and making it very obvious that that character is 2D. Now, it doesn't work particularly well with things like flat characters like this, but once we start extruding shapes and extruding text, you can imagine that flying around a layer like this really shows off the 3D qualities of that layer. So that's a little shortcut for creating a null to control the camera.